Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I'm grateful to the Labour Party for bringing this important debate to the Chamber today. The constituency I represent of Renfrewshire South takes in a large portion of west and southern Renfrewshire, as well as the Leven Valley of East Renfrewshire. But where I live in Johnston, the airport's a big presence, not just in terms of employment, but with the sound of aircraft regularly roaring over my head. The wheels don't quite clip, the undercarriage doesn't quite clip the chimney of my house, but it's not far off it. And I think one of the most disconcerting and surreal experiences I had during lockdown was the all-pervasive silence across Johnston, and then when driving through here to Parliament, seeing the lines and rows of aircraft on the runway, because every day those aircraft were on the runway was an increasing risk and threat to jobs at the airport, in aerospace, in wider aviation. So I want to recognise from the outset the highly skilled workforce at Glasgow Airport, in wider aviation and in aerospace deserves our full support, and it deserves both of our governments working together. I certainly appreciate there is a great deal of distrust and mutual antagonism between the UK and the Scottish Government at the moment, for understandable reasons, but this is too important an issue to be lost in that particular debate. Now, I do want to recognise the work that the Scottish Government has already undertaken, particularly the provision of business relates for aviation, with airports and ground handling providers benefiting. And I would note that this is something that has not been offered elsewhere in the UK, or not by the UK Government itself, who have chosen not to extend that. So that's a resource that has come out of our own money here in this Parliament. I want to recognise in particular the impact on the aerospace industry in Renfrewshire, as a consequence, understandably, of the reduced demand across the supply chain, and the particular impact at the Rolls-Royce site in Shinnon. 700 jobs, half the workforce are going, and by any measure this is a huge blow to the local economy. And I do welcome, in these difficult circumstances, the work undertaken by the Scottish Government to support staff through PACE, and also in particular the involvement of the Minister for Business, Fair Work and Skills, Jamie Hepburn. In particular, I welcome the establishment of the Aerospace Response Group, and I see Mr Hepburn there, and I understand he'll be summing up for the Government this afternoon. I would ask him if he's able to, and he's summing up, or if not, if he could write to me for an update on the work of the Aerospace Response Group. I note that they have a wide range of stakeholders involved, and I very much welcome the involvement of the unions, noting STUC, Unite, Prospect and GMB attending the last meeting for which minutes are available. Also particularly welcome the attendance of Renfrewshire Council, and including representation from Rolls-Royce as well. And I would note that one of the key areas of interest of the group is in people and skills, particularly around apprenticeships and job loss mitigation, which were identified as immediate priorities. And also recognise that the subgroup, we're looking to establish a subgroup to have further discussions on aircraft decommissioning, and saw this as a good opportunity to maintain skills and capacity. And I would just note from the minutes that on the issue of aircraft decommissioning, it was highlighted that this is not about creating a scrapyard for planes, but remanufacturing and reusing components. And there was optimistically further potential, it states, to create a global centre of expertise. And that work was now required to develop a full business case to progress this opportunity at pace. And I think all members of the Chamber would want to see that work undertaking expeditiously, while these people are still there, and we can retain that talent and that skills base, which will be vital for our economy going forward, and particularly if we want to effect a truly just transition to net zero for the aviation sector. Now, I also want to pay tribute to the work of my colleague Gavin Newlands MP. He's a constituency neighbour. We take in part of the northern part of my constituency, in Linwood and Craigends and Brookfield, and he has been a tireless champion for the aerospace sector and Glasgow Airport. His engagement with aviation and aerospace industries has been very welcome, and he's obviously pushed for targeted support in this sector within the House of Commons. And I also want to just thank him and to make sure he is credited in the Chamber, as others have, for his private members' bill that he's introduced to end the exploitative and disgraceful policy of fire and rehire. And I very much welcome that Mr Starmer is now supporting that. I would just note that that was announced on Monday. The private member's bill was introduced by Gavin on the 22nd of July, and it was presented to Parliament on the 9th of June, 3 months ago. I just do think it's very important. It's not about whose name's on it at the end, but I think it's important to recognise the work of a hard-working constituency MP to address this issue and represent his constituents. I also want to recognise and welcome, and it would be remiss of me not to, yesterday's announcement of the partnership between Strathclyde University and Boeing, which will be the latest venture set up with the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District a few miles north from my constituency. And this is a partnership that's forecast to create potentially as many as 200 high-skilled, high-value jobs at the cutting edge of design and technology. And this is made possible in part through £3.5 million of Scottish enterprise funding. This is exactly the kind of intervention we need, and so it's very welcome to see the Scottish Government engaging with that. There's much more I would want to say, but the final point I would want to, and what I would want to end on is the need for the UK Government to provide targeted support for the aviation sector. And this is not a cop-out. We simply don't have the borrowing powers under the fiscal framework to effect the necessary quantum that's required to give that support. So the UK Government needs to do that. This is impacting aviation right across the UK. Aviation is a reserve matter, and so the UK Government really needs to give that targeted support, and most importantly, they must extend the furlough scheme. Thank you.